Greetings and welcome to the Reparenting Daily podcast. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into reparenting, exploring tools and resources to help us through our journey. The podcast is divided into 3 sections. First is a reading. Second is a discussion of the reading followed by a journal prompt. And the last section is a peaceful meditation for closing. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from whenever and wherever you're joining us. Thanks for being here for another day of reparenting as we start on a new book. This one is called Rising Strong by Brené Brown, a famous researcher on vulnerability, connection, and attachment. We're going to be looking at chapter 7, and it's entitled The Brave and Brokenhearted. Rumbling with expectations, disappointment, resentment, heartbreak, connection, grief, forgiveness, compassion, and empathy. Claudia reached out to me after attending a talk I gave on the Rising Strong research. She had recently had a difficult family experience that she was struggling to process, and she explained several of the pieces fell into place as she listened to me speak. She generously agreed to be interviewed for the book and has allowed me to share her story. Claudia is in her early 30s, 5 years into an exciting and promising career in design, newly married, and in the process of fixing up a new home in an up-and-coming neighborhood on Chicago's north side. She's smart, funny, kind, and radiant. Claudia explained that she and her husband had decided to split up for their first Thanksgiving as a married couple so they could each spend time with their own families. They didn't have much time off work, and both were overdue for visits, so she headed home for Madison, Wisconsin, while he took off for Milwaukee. Going home for the holidays is fraught with emotion for a lot of people, and it had never been easy for Claudia. Her youngest sister, Amy, suffers from depression and alcoholism. Amy's drinking problems began in high school. She first got sober when she was 18, but over the next 10 years, she bounced back and forth between relapses and further treatment. Now, in her late 20s, Amy was drinking again, and this time refusing to get help. She couldn't hold down a steady job and was fighting with her parents, her only source of support. Even though they had rented an apartment in Madison for her, Amy refused to live there because it meant having to answer questions about her health and sobriety. Holidays and family gatherings have always been tough, Claudia said. When Amy does show up, you never know what you're in for. If she's drinking, it always ends in an altercation with my parents. When she doesn't show up, my parents' grief hangs over the house. Either way, no one talks about it. It's the elephant in the room. One time, Amy did show up, sober, and on her best behavior. Claudia's then fiancé and his family had joined them for dinner, and Claudia's father gave a rousing speech about how grateful they were to have Amy with them for the weekend. During the speech, Claudia and her other sister, Anna, exchanged glances that conveyed their hurt and frustration. Amy's struggle consumed and defined the family, often making Claudia and Anna feel like there wasn't much energy or attention left for anyone else. Amy had texted Claudia a couple days before she arrived in Madison, saying she was looking forward to seeing her and hoped that they could get together without their parents. Thanksgiving dinner without Amy was difficult, and, as Claudia had predicted, her parents were sad. But there was no conversation about Amy's absence. The night before she returned to Chicago, Claudia and Anna went to meet Amy for dinner. I just thought we could have one meal together, Claudia told me. 3 sisters sharing a pizza and catching up, like a normal family. Amy texted Claudia the address where she was staying, but as Claudia and Anna approached, they began to think they had made a mistake. The address, in a high-crime part of town, was an abandoned store. There was a plywood covering the broken windows, and the rotting door was slightly ajar. Claudia and Anna walked up to the door and peeked inside. When they saw a shadowy figure towards the back of the store, they each looked towards each other and decided to get back in the car. Before they could turn around, Amy called out, "Come in." Fear washed over Claudia as she finally saw Amy in the dim light of the small apartment stairways where she was standing. She looked worse than ever. She was dirty, disheveled, and had dark circles under her eyes. The room was full of trash as they stood there staring at Amy. A mouse ran across the floor. Claudia was overwhelmed by the pain at the sight of Amy and her suffering. Claudia explained to me, 5 years ago, I would have asked myself when I saw Amy, is she drunk or sober? But this far into her disease, she doesn't have to be drunk for you to know she's suffering. Even when she's sober, you can tell she's sick. Thank you. And that's the reading for today. Welcome back. A new book today. The brave and the broken-hearted, rumbling with expectations, disappointment, resentment, heartbreak, connection, grief, forgiveness, and compassion. So, this short reading was just the introduction of the first story and the introduction to chapter 7. We have not really gotten into the substance of this. But as you can see, what is happening here is the shaping of a family, a dysfunctional family who is struggling with an alcoholic sibling and sister, an alcoholic daughter. And what you're witnessing is, first of all, the distance that is created, so the ambiguity around their relationship. They don't really know her life, the degree of her illness, how far she has progressed. We've also seen a witness of sibling rivalry and conflict, where the two other sisters feel as if the attention has been taken away from them because she, Amy, sucks up all of the energy as an addict and all of the attention. Lastly, you see a family who is really not truly seeing each other, not truly present with each other and their pain. And so, as we reflect on this reading today, let's try to imagine the level of heartbreak that comes from such a troubling and unending situation that has no resolution. They cannot change their parents, who are focused on Amy. They cannot change Amy, but they are stuck with broken expectations and disappointment and grief and perhaps still love for Amy. This is the result of a dysfunctional family. Instead of living naturally in a state of peace and contentment, we are thrown into dynamics that engender emotional instability. And so part of the challenge is to think how we can begin to have compassion for ourselves and the situation, and to slowly release ourselves from these binds, so that we can release ourselves from continuing to inflict trauma on ourselves. As always, thank you for being here. Take care of yourself and be well. And now, let us move on to the final section, the meditation. This is an unguided meditation. I will simply provide some music and you can take some time to relax. Please feel free to choose a location and a place where you feel safe and where you can be undisturbed for the next 10 minutes. You can choose to be sitting down, standing, as you like, wherever you are most comfortable. Thank you for being here and enjoy the meditation.